Well, well. Consider me pleasantly surprised. For the moment, at least. Hey there, it's CR-Volcanic or Connor. Good to talk to you again. Monster Hunter Now is the latest Monster Hunter game on the market, and it is a Pokemon Go-esque GPS game made by Niantic for the mobile phone. A fact that made many a Monster Hunter fan shudder when this game was announced a number of months ago. And who could blame them? Though I had hopped off the Pokemon Go train around the winter of the year it came out, I had heard the rumblings and grumblings and occasional outbursts of anger surrounding Pokemon Go in the years after its release. I'm still not particularly versed on the specifics, but from what I heard, Niantic squandered something truly special through greed. So I think many Monster Hunter fans of sound mind kind of flinched when they heard about Now. I mean, I sure did. Now that it's out, how is it? What do I think about it? It's pretty good. Both as a game of its own merits and as a comparison to the other large names in the mobile game space, and as a Monster Hunter adaptation for that matter. Like Pokemon Go, you're tasked with traveling the area around you to find wild, mysterious, and powerful monsters out in the actual real world. This time though, you're not here to make them your friends, you're here to beat the snot out of them and turn them into pants, such as how Monster Hunter goes. And the monster hunting provided here is pretty cool, considering the limitations of the hardware and controls. Speaking of, your controls are super easy. You flick to the sides to evade in the direction you want to go, you tap to attack, and you hold your finger to guard if your weapon can guard, or enter a counter stance, or charge a weapon if any of those mechanics apply to what you're playing. That's the crux of it. Every weapon has its own auto combos ripped right out of Monster Hunter World. When you find monsters you want to hunt, you pick a set of armor and a weapon to engage them, and within about a 90-second time limit, you gotta take them down. Built into this combat are many core staples of Monster Hunter. Statuses, elemental weaknesses, flinches, stun damage, knockdowns, part breaks, weapon affinity, depth rolls for Monster Hunter Generations, if you can believe it. That's pretty cool. Armor skills, and differentiating hit zones corresponding with monster weak points. They jammed a lot of Monster Hunter's mechanics into this fairly simple combat, and I really appreciate that attention to detail. Things like that solidify the feeling of playing Monster Hunter. I don't feel like it's a mobile combat game with a Monster Hunter World skin, and that goes a long way to endear this game to me. Let's talk a little bit about your progression here. You're gonna want to upgrade your gear a lot. Slaying monsters in hidden gathering points stockpiles your inventory up with items at a pretty decent rate, and you'll need all of that stuff to upgrade your gear. Every 5 levels or so, your armor and weapons will increase in grade. Grades are a slightly bigger jump in stats and can unlock new features for your armor and weapons. For weapons, bumping them up to grade 2 will grant them a special ability, which is typically their stronger attacks from World, like the Helm Breaker for the longsword or Perfect Rush combo for Sword and Shield. At grade 4, you can get a point of an armor skill on your weapon, and at grade 8, you can get a second. Armor pieces get armor skills added to them at grades 2 and 6. There are, as of yet, no charms or decorations in this game. So, upgrading these weapons and armor over and over and over is the way to bump your stats, survivability, and passive abilities. Thankfully, there is the ability to preset custom loadouts, so if you have a specific counter set for a certain monster, a strategy this channel wholeheartedly endorses, that option is on the table. So, as you upgrade your gear, it'll keep you alive better and allow you to do more things. Not quite how traditional Monster Hunter works, but I'd say it makes sense for the context of Now. And even where I live, that has some limited travelability due to some nearby busy streets, I really don't feel all that nickel and dimed by the parts I'm getting. It's not a gargantuan number per hunt, but as you fight and fight and fight, the rewards do start to kind of pile up, and upgrades can be made pretty regularly. I personally like to go on my walk, do all my fighting and questing, and then relax at home, sorting through my winnings and making the upgrades I want to make. Kind of like crafting new gear at the hub in between quests in a normal Monster Hunter game. Now, it's not just you that's going to be getting stronger. The monsters will be leveling up with you, and this is another pretty cool feature of Now. Monsters have a star level to them, indicating their difficulty. Different monsters have different minimum star levels, but they can all go up to the same maximum level. So, for example, Great Jagras, Kulu-Yaku, Puki-Puki, and Baroth are the 4 monsters you fight the earliest in the game and can be fought as low as a 1 star. Great Gyros and Tobi-Kadachi are fought a little bit later and can be fought at a level no lower than 2 star, but they can all go up to the same maximum. etc. As monsters get higher in difficulty, their health goes up, their attacks deal more damage, they start to learn new attacks, and they drop new rewards that lower level versions of themselves cannot drop. So you're getting a newer experience, a tougher experience, and you're gaining better rewards that you can't gain by farming 1-star monsters over and over and over. I am only Hunter rank 17 as of writing this chunk of the video, so perhaps the difficulty creep steepens as the game progresses, though as of right now, I haven't heard anything about obnoxious difficulty hikes in the game from anyone else. But so far, the jump from 1-star to 2-star difficulty is noticeable but completely manageable. I'm sure there will be higher level quests going forwards that are more tailored to multiplayer experiences, but my first difficulty jump was not all that obnoxious. And once you start beating 2-star monsters, they start dropping the parts you need to upgrade your armor and weapons up to grade 2, bringing you to their level. Takes a little bit of a leap at first to transition up to this next level of play, but slowly you'll be able to build yourself up to being on the same level with your opponents again. Additionally, large monsters on the map will have stars over their head, so you can tell exactly what level an encounter is before you even choose to engage with it. As it stands right now, I still have a really good balance of 1- and 2-star quests in my game. So it's not like the second you hit a higher level of quests, they drop all the low level ones and stick you exclusively with the higher level ones that you're going to have a trickier time beating. The balance still exists. There'll also be small monsters and gathering points you can farm for some extra resources. Small monsters will pop in frequently and unendingly. They'll give you something to whack. Both individual small gathering points and Pokestop equivalent multi-item grabbing locations at real-world places of interest are how you're going to be gathering all those non-monster related items. These items will cover the second half of your equipment upgrading. Now, again, didn't play Pokemon Go for a very long time, so I don't know if this was ever a post-launch feature, but man, was it a hassle to only be able to get items at the Pokestops when the game first dropped. Being able to much more easily gather some items from these randomly generated locations and get a more decent flow rate of items that I need for my upgrades is really appreciated. What I wish was a bit more plentiful, actually, are these procedurally generated biomes. They're a really cool idea, and they add to the experience when you're in them. They're just a tad small. Your boss monsters, the bread and butter of the game, can only be found in these colored looking regions on your map. Clear out all the bosses in that area, you clear the biome until it refreshes in, I think, 3 hours. These biomes are meant to match some of the maps you will find in a Monster Hunter game. A forest map, a swamp map, deserts, and I'm sure aquatic maps, ice biomes, volcanic biomes, stuff like that. Those will turn up eventually. These are kind of cool, aesthetically, and as one would expect, different monsters can only be found in certain biomes. Problem is, these areas are a little small, a tad scattered, and when the boss monsters are slain, the biomes fade away, leaving the map all gray and colorless again. Perhaps it's outside the game's ability to render all those biomes and all those monsters all at the same time on your entire screen, and I'm sure they want you to walk around a little extra and play the game a little more so they can spread things out a little bit, but it kind of just leaves this awkward, bland chunk of empty space where there's nothing really to look at or going on when you clear out a biome. You're just being accosted by winged drakes and jaguars for like 5 minutes before you can get to the next boss. I'm not saying they have to drastically increase the density of the boss monsters in the game, but I just think the parts without the biomes are kind of aesthetically unappealing, and there's a lot of that space. When I'm in these biomes, I'm actually kind of immersed, and the game sucks you in and makes you feel like you're out in the wild with these creatures, hunting them. But when you're in that in-between void, that feeling's kind of lost. Not a massive issue, but I wish those areas were a little bit bigger. Not even packed with more content, I just want more of that color on my screen. Though I did notice once you start to unlock more monsters, they start to fill in more areas because you couldn't see them prior. So it's an issue that kind of fixes itself as it goes on. Still don't like the empty gray though. Another immersion-esque feature that I really like, and I'm glad made the jump from Pokemon Go, is the AR. Now, sadly, you can't fight the monsters in AR, but that probably would have been an absolute nightmare to program. You can project them onto real world and watch them do some of their idle animations and attack actions though, and it's pretty cool. For some reason, they're also gigantic in the real world, so you can have a great jaguar the size of a house strolling down your streets and it looks hilarious. They also, clip into things and fade in and out of reality pretty easily, so this feature is fun for the goofy jank of it as well. One other thing to go over is the game's quest structure. This will be how you progress through the game and how you'll receive the bulk of your hunter rank points and money and start to unlock new things to do. You'll have your main story quest and your daily special quests. Completing tasks in the main quest line is how you unlock new monsters and monsters of a higher star rating and new weapons. Special quests don't progress you in the game so much, but they do give out a lot of resources that are needed to level up and buy and upgrade new gear. The special quests are on a daily rotation, meaning you'll have 24 hours to do a group of 3 of them, and the main quests will stick around until completed, staying in the same sequence. You'll be able to clear both sets of quests pretty naturally just by playing the game. Tasks are as simple as beat a certain amount of monsters, beat a certain amount of small monsters, gather a certain amount of items, hunt 1 or 2 of the specific large monster, super easy things like that that you'll just complete as you play. You don't really have to go super out of your way to do some of these. I'd say it also warrants mentioning that the game is a little slow out of the gate. It takes a minute or 2 to get to 2-star monsters and to start to unlock the other weapon types. Now, I bet this is the case because they wanted to give the player some time to stock up during the early hunter ranks before the game starts to get challenging, but that gap in between, I'd say hunter rank 8 and 15 or so, when you finally unlock all the weapons, really drags, and there's a decent portion where you just kinda aren't getting anything new. So the game has a mild pacing issue, but breaks free of it pretty early on. So, the combat's pretty fun, the monsters are cool, the progression builds on itself fairly well, the exploration is decent. How's the in-game store? Man, could it be a lot worse. And, yeah, who knows, maybe it will be eventually. Pessimism is healthy when wisely applied, and with Niantic, it's pretty wisely applicable. What I think probably is, and hopefully will continue to be Monster Hunter Now's saving grace, is Capcom, and specifically the Monster Hunter development team. Yeah, Niantic dropped the ball into the Earth's core with Pokemon Go, but let's be honest, the guys who make Monster Hunter care way more about quality assurance in Monster Hunter than Game Freak cares about quality assurance with Pokemon. If that care and standard is maintained, Monster Hunter Now might hold a solid legacy. If it stumbles, I think Niantic's going to drive the game to the ground, and we can really only wait and see. As for what's available to be bought with real money right now, there's a few things. Number one, and probably my least favorite aspect about this game, your item box inventory is limited. You can keep up to 5,000 items on your person. If you hit 5,000, you can't gather any more. However, you can buy extra box space. Now, realistically, it'll be pretty tough to hit 5,000 items in your inventory. Even with only 13 monsters in the game right now, that's still 13 plus a few extra armor sets and a variety of weapons per weapon category, and each piece of gear upgrades to grade 10 with 5 levels per grade. That's a lot of parts to throw into the gear grinder. But limited item space does bug me, and there's no way to sell items that you don't want as far as I know. On top of that, there are a few ways you can find yourself with a fair bit of part bloat, namely from the small monsters. These guys drop parts useful for weapon and armor upgrades, but if you fight every single one you come across, I find that you run the risk of clogging your item box with sharp claws and wingdrake hides. I would actually recommend not overhunting the small monsters and only taking them on if you need to freshen up your supply or are trying to clear some quest objectives. With proper item management and consistent gear upgrades, item space limitations shouldn't be too much of a hassle, but man, would I have preferred that this wasn't an issue that could be rectified with money. There is an in-game currency you can buy, and they give you next to none of this currency in-game, so if you want to procure more of the useful items from the game shop, you're almost absolutely gonna have to be shelling out some cash. First and foremost is your healing. Now, the healing system actually isn't that bad. Up to HR 11, you get an unlimited first aid med restock. Past HR 11, you will once per day have your healing items restocked by 5, up to a maximum of 10. Those are your free heals for the next 24 hours. Need more? You're gonna have to spend gems. It is pretty easy to not get hit if you practice at the game and pay attention to the combat. Monster Hunter Now actually rewards you for being skilled at it by prolonging the amount of time you can play, by the fact that you're just not gonna need to heal more. Additionally, there is a passive heal that gradually recovers your health when you're out of combat. It's a slow pace, but if you're on a 20, 30, 40 minute walk and you get hit early on, you may wind up getting a fair bit of your health back without needing to consume an item. Also, I am yet to find that the monster's damage is atrociously high in comparison to the defense you have. Next up, you can purchase paintballs which will mark certain monsters to be fought later on, perhaps when you've improved your gear. You'll get these Palico paintballs which will randomly mark monsters for you, and they'll show up later on, which is nice, but if you want to manually paintball specific monsters, again, that's going to cost gems. There are also items you can buy with gems that increase the radius in which you can select monsters and gathering points to interact with. All in all, that which there is to buy are helpful conveniences that can expedite and prolong your gameplay, but nothing that feels like a requirement to have fun. And I very much appreciate that. What's here is undesirable, and I much rather would have just paid a flat $10 for the game and not have these features in here. God, do you remember when you could buy phone games? I miss Infinity Blade. Anyways, I expected way worse. I am cynical that there may eventually be worse. I hope Capcom can keep Niantic on a tight leash here because I think this game deserves it. It's good. Pretty damn good, all things considered. I like the combat, I like the gathering, I like how the weapons feel, the monsters animate well, and this really could just be the baby steps of something really good if it's allowed to be. The team has stated a desire to bring every monster out there into now, and even create some original ones for the game. From what I've read online, they plan for monthly events and quarterly updates, and I want to see what they can bring to this game, on top of new monsters. And they could add stuff like day and night cycles, charms, decorations, weather, custom palicos, more weapons, mounting, new biomes, all kinds of stuff. I'm very curious how they're going to make new monsters and armor sets relevant. We already have, or will already have, pretty high-grade weapons and armor from what exists in the game by the time new updates roll out. Maybe they're not going to bother with power creep too much, who knows? I'll keep my fingers crossed that this game has a better run than its predecessor, but one way or the other, I'm going to be honest about it. If this video does well enough, I'd even be happy to cover the updates and events as they come out. I already plan to do a second video in a few days talking about the multiplayer experience, and how my perspective has changed after a few days of playing. Till then, I'll talk to you guys soon. See you around. Shout out to the patrons, and special shout out to Pico Plush, Nihilist Chimerax, and Silky Dino. Thanks, guys.